Anyway, let's go back to the beginning here. I hope you're hanging in there because I mean, many people who show openings show entire games, and then they talk briefly about the game. I mean, it's not so interesting. I mean, if you want to know about a specific opening, and this is just the way it works. I mean, you have to go through all sorts of variations. I was looking at c4, but there's, I mean, just a quick look. There's knight f3. There is knight c3. There is bishop f4, e3, bishop g5, and many others. You have to, I mean, if you just talk about a game, a specific game, there's no way you're going to learn that much about the opening actually. So this is the way it works. I mean, you just talk and look over variations. So either you do this or you just sell for something that somebody talks about, you know, when they are analyzing a game. It doesn't give me anything actually. It's more entertainment than anything else. So obviously knight c6 has to be played, I think, if we talk about the Chigorin Defence. Maybe this could be approached. Like I said, I don't have that much experience with this opening, so knight f3, knight c3, c takes d5, there's e3, bishop f4, bishop g5, e4, g3, c5, even f4. So knight f3, and we already looked at bishop g4, so how about e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, a3 also stops bishop b4 or knight b4 perhaps at some point, e3, castles, bishop d3, d takes, bishop takes, knight e5. I was kind of glancing at a6 with the idea to play b5, but usually you kind of do that before you play castles. For example, here instead of castle you can play a6, and the idea is that, for example, if the rook c1 you can castle here, bishop b3, and now we take. So this is very similar to other openings in the Queen's Gambit or Nimsa Indian or whatever. This is very often played. And the bishop goes back, and now we can play b4 or bishop b7. Let's say b4, bishop takes, knight e4, bishop b7. Okay. I don't think I would play b4 actually. I think I would just play bishop b4 because that was my idea in the first place. Castles, knight b4, bishop b1, knight b d5. Just one thing that can happen. So I think we can all agree that after the knight c6, this could turn out to be virtually anything. Anything could happen here. But I think I believe that people will play either knight f3, knight c3, or c takes d5. e3 is possible, and you can even play the e5 here actually. D takes and d4, and if he takes, queen takes, knight takes, bishop d3 in order to stop the knight from forking the king and the rook. Bishop g4, f3, bishop e6, knight e2. Castles long, knight takes, rook takes, bishop e2. If bishop takes c4, bishop e3, bishop b4 check, knight c3, rook h4. Well, what happens if g3? Looks like this bishop is hanging, so takes. Maybe here. And then, for example, takes. The pawn structure looks just terrible. He has basically almost 3 isolated pawns. Well, actually more, if you count this. So maybe it's not such a bad idea after all. If not e5, knight f6. Well, knight f6 looks a bit more passive, but e5 kind of everything explodes in its end. I think most players will play d takes d5, but there's also c takes d5. But then again, we have the same situation. Queen takes, knight c3, and bishop b4, and bishop d2 takes with the pawn, and again we have exactly the same position as before. So e5, d takes. You don't have to play d4, obviously. You could also take with over here, but then just takes. Bishop takes c4, knight takes e5. Black had to pay the price of not being able to castle anymore, but now the queens have come off, so maybe it's not such a horrible idea. So bishop e2, bishop f5, knight f3, knight e3 check, takes, knight e5. Bishop g6 in order to protect, and then just knight takes, h takes, and this is the last move in this variation. I will try to come to some kind of conclusion after I've looked at these moves. Okay. Maybe this is actually possible. Let's take a look here. d4. How about knight c6 immediately? If c4 now, then d5 perhaps. If not c4, how about e4, d5, e5, and this could be some sort of French defense. Bishop f5 or an improved version of Carol Khan perhaps, I don't know. Queen's, some kind of queen's opening, I don't know. But then obviously how about d5 immediately? Knight e5, e4, f4 could be played. Knight g6 perhaps. e4, e6, d takes, f takes. D takes is playable, but then again queen takes, king takes, knight f3, black can't castle anymore, so maybe f takes is better. Knight f3, bishop c5, knight c3, knight h6, bishop d3, knight g4, queen e2, e5, f5, knight f4, bishop takes, e takes, knight e5, c6, takes. You could go here or check, but I'm not so sure if that check actually makes any difference. If check, the king just goes here. Well, okay, another check. He could either go up here or over there. No. That's unnecessary. Might even lose. No, I don't think I would go for that stuff. I'm not so sure if I like this at all. How did we end up here in the first place? Okay, d5. The knight could go back to b8, but that actually looks extremely passive. Although white has not accomplished very much. Let's say not b8, e4, d6, c4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7. Okay, the knight could be developed either the bishop first or the knight to d7. Well, let's see, knight c3. The bishop could go to g4 in order to get that bishop out before white plays h3. But it turns out that after knight c3, it's knight f6, bishop e2, castles, e5, knight to e1 perhaps. This kind of looks passive, and this looks like some sort of King's Indian as well. I don't play the King's Indian actually. Okay, you could play knight c6 like I said, but I think it's better to go on d5 here. And now again, if c4. Well, actually, how about if you look at something like this, knight f3 for example, and then knight c6. So it's not actually necessary to play knight c6 here. After d5 and and black has to play c4 and only now you play knight c6. That's not actually true. You can play d5 and whatever. If white doesn't play c4, he can play knight f3, knight c3, bishop f4, e3, bishop g5. He can play virtually anything. You can, no matter what he plays, you can still play knight c6. So knight f3, knight c6, for example. And now c4, bishop g4, and again we end up in the same variation as we looked at before. So it seems like all roads lead to Rome anyway. So d5 again. Let's see. Let's say knight to c3. Well, again you can play knight c6. This looks like some sort of Petro defense, except that the pawns are now on d5 and d4. This could be played, and well, I'm not so sure about this actually, because of e4. D takes, then d5, and if let's say e6, knight f3, knight f6, e5, and again we're in the French defense. So it's not like these moves are carved into stone or something. I mean, obviously you could end up in another opening depending on how white plays. So the idea is to get into the Chigorin defense, but that's not always up to you what you want. So obviously after d5 you sort of suggest the idea to white that okay, I want to play the Chigorin defense, and if he says yes, okay, I'll play c4, and then now immediately we can go knight c6. But you know, it doesn't have to be that way. He can play knight f3 as we looked at. He can play knight c3. He can even play bishop f4. How about knight c6 here? Is knight c6 a good move? I mean, let's just be honest here. Is knight c6 a good move? Is that something you want to play? I mean, if you want to play the Chigorin defense, is knight c6 actually an opening? I mean, a move that you want to play in this position? I don't think so. I think knight f6 is a better move, yeah. I think e6 is a better move. I think bishop f5 is a better move. I would even say that c5 is a better move. And if takes, knight c6, for example. And the idea is to play perhaps e5 and win back this pawn. So for example, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, preparing b4 and protecting this pawn. This could be played. I think it's okay, but it looks almost like some sort of reversed Queen's Gambit or something. Or reversed colors, that is. So again, it's not so simple. I mean, if you want to play something specific, the moves have to fall into place, so to speak. But if we stick to the main moves, then d takes e4, knight f3, knight f6, e4, bishop g4, bishop e3, e6, bishop takes, bishop e4, queen c2, castles, rook d1 or castles long, but again the main moves, rook d1, queen e7, bishop e2, e5, d5, knight e4, knight takes, e takes, rook takes, bishop takes, actually king takes here, bishop c5, rook d2, or even rook c4, bishop takes, f takes e3. If king takes, well, the king looks very exposed. I don't even have to talk about that. So f takes, knight g4. Well, white is actually up a pawn here, so I don't know. Maybe it's not such a great idea. But knight e4 looks almost forced. Knight b8 could be played. Castles, bishop takes f3, bishop takes, bishop c5, takes, b4, queen takes b4, rook b1, queen c5, and white wins back the pawn. Okay, I think this is enough. So if you're new to this opening, like I am, more or less, you have to agree that it's an interesting idea for black to play. So I hope you got something out of this, and I think I will start playing this more often myself.